fellow atheists everywhere have heard this assertion countless times.
In the absence of God, all you are is an accident waiting to die. Now, as morbid as that sounds, that's the reality.
According to many religious people, and even some non-religious theists, atheism is apparently hopeless, depressing, and pessimistically nihilistic.
Okay guys, I just want to make a quick response video to the genetically modified atheists, in particular to a video that he put out called, "Is Atheism Hopeless?" Now, what he tries to do is establish in his video that atheism from an existential perspective isn't hopeless. However, he fails, and instead, if you really pay attention to the video, what comes across is the point that I make, which is that in the grand scheme of things, ultimately atheism is hopeless and meaningless and purposeless. However, you can make up meaning and purpose for yourself, and it's good enough to get by. And obviously he tries to paint a rosy picture for his atheist followers, and it's his prerogative to do so. All power to him. If he wants to do this, no problem. However, he tries beating around the bush, but he can't escape the fact that ultimately atheism, there is no ultimate purpose or meaning, or what he calls divine purpose or meaning to life. It's meaningless, it's purposeless. However, you can make up meaning and purpose for yourselves. In other words, you can lie to yourselves, you can make something up, and this may allow you to get by and give you the sort of, positive outlook on life. If it works, brilliant. For most atheists, I believe this doesn't work. Most people are looking, they recognize they have an innate drive to find meaning and purpose. And this is more than just making something up as you go along. That being said, I think he acknowledges he agrees with my particular position at 2 minutes, 4 seconds into the video, where he says himself, if you watch the clip now.
In response to claim 1, I and many atheists like me reject the premise that meaning and purpose are to be found rather than created. What I mean by that is that I think that meaning and purpose are constructs of the mind. It's value assigned to reality by an observer.
As you can see, he acknowledges that, atheists, or himself as an atheist, that there is no meaning to find, no purpose to find. There is no such thing. Instead, we create purpose and meaning. Let's pay attention to what he's saying. In other words, what he's acknowledging is that atheism is hopeless, is meaningless and purposeless in the grand scheme of things. However, you can make up meaning and purpose for yourself to get you by. I believe this is, you can consider this, or it's close to the absurdist position, which acknowledges that, look, there is no meaning or purpose in life, but you make it up and you try getting by because innately, intrinsically, human beings can't get by or away from the fact that we look for purpose and meaning as human beings to get by and live fulfilling lives. That being said, another thing he does in his video, what I want to address here, is he makes a point. He says, look, atheism isn't a worldview.
That atheism is just a simple lack of belief in God or gods. It's a singular position on a singular issue. Acting as if atheism entails or demands a certain worldview is just misguided. So, of course, treating atheism as a worldview and stating that it's inherently nihilistic or hopeless is just nonsensical.
But now, this is very common by atheists. They try to, to divorce themselves from issues or problems they have to address by saying atheism isn't a worldview. Fine, if we say atheism isn't a worldview, just take his position for a second. It's just a lack of belief. I believe he says it's, a lack of belief in God or gods. If you take this position, what he has to realize that holding even that position, don't call it a worldview, has implications. You can't escape the implications. Now, if you're an atheist and a naturalist, someone that believes that there is nothing beyond the physical, it's all a closed physical system, and everything could be explained via physical processes, then you cannot escape the reality that atheism leads to an absurdity, a crisis, an existential crisis, which is that there is no ultimate purpose, there is no ultimate value, there is no meaningful happiness. And these are points I've made in previous videos. And he seems to acknowledge this indirectly at least, and doesn't directly touch upon it. But you can't escape this. Now, if you're an atheist and someone that's, recognizes that you are a human being and deep down inside there's meaning and purpose, yet there is this friction, right? You can try to do what he suggests for you to do, which is make up meaning and purpose for yourself just to get by. But if it doesn't work, then maybe it's time to reconsider your position and look into something else, or look into an alternative view. And I, as a Muslim, would encourage you to look into Islam, because I believe that is where you will find your solutions. Nevertheless, that's not the point of this particular video. Going back to his video, he tries to break down his video into 3 points. He says, first point he tries to address is fulfillment and meaning which lead to happiness can't exist without the supernatural. And he tries to suggest that this is a point many people make. Maybe they do, but it's not the point I make, because what I say or clarified before, that yes, you can make up purpose for yourself and temporarily distract yourself, which may lead to a sort of superficial sense of happiness, but you can't truly be happy unless you have the answer to those fundamental questions that we ask as human beings. Secondly, he makes an interesting point. He says he tries to address the point that life is meaningless without an afterlife. Now, here he plays a video clip. I don't know what the documentary was. You can watch it in his original video. And he basically, what's being suggested here is that the opposite is true. That if you really want to make the most of this life and enjoy this life, then it's better doing away with the idea of the afterlife, because if there is an afterlife and there's an eternity, then you're not really, bothered or concerned to make the most of this life. Now, it's a valid point if you take the underlying assumption of what's being suggested here, which is that what's being assumed is that the afterlife, eternity, is the same as this life. Then, yeah, the point applies. However, from an Islamic perspective, we know if you're talking about the afterlife, that's an eternal life which will result, or where you end up in eternity will result from what you do in this life. From that perspective, now this life becomes even more meaningful. How you use it, how you utilize it, realizing that you have a limited period of time, and what you do here will dictate where you end up in the next life. From that perspective, of course, the point that he makes, the second point he addresses, breaks apart. The third point he makes is atheists cannot and do not lead fulfilled, happy lives. And he gives many statistics, I believe, regarding this point, or maybe another point from certain countries in the world which show statistics of atheists being happy. Now, I never make this point in particular because, like I said, as an atheist, you can be happy, you can give yourself or make up purpose for yourself, but you're essentially doing that. You're making things up for yourself. If this leads you to being happy, that's all good and well. However, from the perspective of ultimate purpose, do you have real purpose? No. Because look, at the end of the day, it boils down to this. If you adopt atheism and you're a naturalist, then everything in existence, including your existence, is a result of random physical happening. You're just this physical robot, this physical accident. And everything that exists is a result of an accidental process. And if that's the case, then there is no ultimate purpose. There is no, what does that even mean? Right? What does that even mean? It means nothing. I'm talking about the logical implications. I'm not talking about subjective views here. Logical implications of holding on to atheism, whether you call it a worldview or not. So at the end of the day, I guess, to summarize, he does acknowledge, although it's indirectly, that atheism is hopeless in the grand scheme of things, but he tries to, paint the picture and say that, oh, look, we can give meaning and purpose to ourselves. And if that gets you by, then that's all good and well. But for those that are looking and inquiring further, and that's not good enough, which I'm assuming it won't be for most people, then I really encourage you to look into Islam and the message of Islam. Look past the media narrative and what some individuals like, Genetically Modified Skeptic and others are putting out there, which is, to be honest, just in many cases lies, misinformed information, information based on, limited research. And, just look into Islam for yourself and see what you think. So until next time, and take care.